Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The silence of space felt heavy today. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he barely noticed. The reports coming in from across the galaxy were getting worse every day. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner from his communication station. "We're getting another transmission from the outer colonies. It's not good news, sir." Jake nodded and walked over to Alex's station. The young officer had dark circles under his eyes. Everyone on the ship looked tired these days. The news from the front lines was taking its toll on the crew. "Put it through," Jake said. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Lisa Grant's face. She looked older than when Jake had last seen her 3 months ago. Her usually neat uniform was wrinkled and her gray hair was messy. "Jake," she said without any greeting, "I need you to listen carefully. The Zephyrian Empire has just attacked the Tau Ceti system. We lost contact with all 3 colonies there yesterday." Jake felt his stomach drop. Tau Ceti had over 2 million people living on its planets. "All of them?" "Every last soul," Lisa replied. Her voice was flat, like she was reading a weather report. "The Centauri Defense Fleet tried to help. 12 ships, including 2 battle cruisers. The Zephyrians destroyed them all in less than an hour." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word. Chief Science Officer Ben Carter was shaking his head. Engineer Katie Walsh had stopped working on her tablet and was staring at the screen. "Admiral," Jake said, "how many systems have they taken now?" 47, Lisa answered. "In the past year alone." "Jake, these aren't normal attacks. The Zephyrians don't just defeat our fleets. They learn from every battle. Every weapon we use against them, they adapt to it. After the first few shots, our guns become useless." The bridge was completely quiet now. Even the usual hum of the ship's systems seemed softer. "What about the other species?" asked Commander Ryan Blake, Jake's second in command. "Surely someone has found a way to fight them?" Lisa's face became even grimmer. "The Andromedans had the most powerful fleet in this sector, 300 ships, including their flagship dreadnought. The Zephyrians destroyed them all in 2 days. The survivors said the enemy ships just absorbed their attack patterns and became immune to everything." Jake rubbed his forehead. "The USS Defiance was a good ship with a good crew, but they were just 1 battle cruiser. If entire fleets couldn't stop the Zephyrians, what chance did they have? The Crystalline Consortium tried next," Lisa continued. "They're known for their energy weapons. Same result. The Reptilian Empire lasted 3 hours with their kinetic bombardment systems. Even the peaceful Ethereals lost their homeworld when they tried to negotiate." 17 different species, Ben said quietly. "All of them defeated." Lisa nodded. 17 species with different technologies, different fighting styles, different weapons. None of it mattered. The Zephyrians learned from all of them and moved on. Suddenly, Alex's console started beeping rapidly. He pressed several buttons and turned to Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's from Kepler Colony." Jake's blood went cold. Kepler Colony was only 2 days away, at maximum speed. It was a mining operation with about 50,000 people, including many families. "Put it through," Jake ordered. The screen split in half. Admiral Lisa was still on one side, but the other side showed a frightened man in a mining supervisor's uniform. Behind him, Jake could see smoke and flashing red lights. "This is Supervisor Danny Phillips at Kepler Colony," the man said. His voice was shaking. "We have 3 large ships approaching our system. They match the descriptions of Zephyrian vessels. We need immediate assistance. Please, is anyone out there? Jake looked at Lisa on the screen. She was already checking something on her own console. Jake, she said, the Defiance is the only ship within range. The nearest fleet is 6 days away. 6 days? Jake repeated. They'll be gone by then. No, Lisa said softly. Jake, I can't order you to do this. One ship against the Zephyrians? It would be suicide. Jake looked around his bridge again. His crew was waiting for his decision. Katie had put down her tablet and was watching him. Ben was pulling up star charts on his screen. Alex was already calculating jump coordinates. Ryan was checking weapon systems. How long until they reach Kepler? Jake asked. Maybe 6 hours, Danny Phillips answered from the colony. Captain, please, we have children here. Families. We can't evacuate everyone in time. Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about all the reports they had received. 47 systems destroyed. Millions of people dead. Entire fleets wiped out. The Zephyrians seemed unstoppable. But 50,000 people were about to die, and the USS Defiance was their only hope. Admiral, Jake said, opening his eyes, we're going to Kepler. Lisa's face showed both pride and sadness. Jake, you know what happened? To all the other fleets, yes, ma'am. But those people need help, and we're the only ones who can give it. Ryan stepped forward. Captain, the crew is ready. We all knew this day might come. Katie nodded from her station. The ship is in perfect condition, sir. All systems are running, at peak efficiency. Ben looked up from his charts. I've been studying the Zephyrian attack patterns. Maybe we can find something the others missed. Alex was already inputting coordinates. Course laid in for Kepler system, Captain. We can be there in 36 hours at maximum speed. Jake felt proud of his crew. They knew they were probably flying to their deaths, but none of them hesitated. Set. Course for Kepler, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. Aye, sir, Alex replied. On the screen, Danny Phillips looked relieved. Thank you, Captain. We'll hold out as long as we can. Admiral Lisa's image was still on the other half of the screen. Jake, she said, I'll send everything we know about Zephyrian tactics to your ship. Maybe it will help. Thank you, Admiral. And Jake, Lisa added, good luck. Come home safe. The screen went dark and the USS Defiance changed course toward Kepler Colony. Jake knew they were probably flying into a battle they couldn't win, but sometimes doing the right thing was more important than winning. As the stars shifted outside the viewing screen, Jake made a silent promise. He would find a way to save those people or die trying. Fleet Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the most unusual fleet in galactic history emerge from hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima system. 36 ships of every conceivable type spread out in a formation that would have made any military academy instructor weep with despair. Mining vessels flew alongside luxury passenger liners. Cargo haulers escorted scientific exploration ships. A traveling circus transport somehow ended up leading a group of freight carriers. In the center of it all, the USS Defiance tried to maintain some semblance of order. Sir, communications. Officer Alex Turner reported, all ships are reporting ready status, though I should mention that the circus ship is asking if they can deploy their acrobatic drones during the battle. Tell them yes, Jake replied. At this point, everything is a weapon. Commander Ryan Blake studied the tactical display showing the Proxima system. Captain, the Zephyrian fleet is massive. 50 ships, just like intelligence reported. But these are bigger than anything we've seen before. Chief Science Officer Ben Carter was analyzing the enemy vessels with growing concern. "Sir, these new Zephyrian ships appear to have modified neural networks. They've added what looks like isolation chambers between different sections of their adaptation systems." "What does that mean?" "They're trying to prevent the cascade failures that we caused at Kepler. If one section of their neural network overloads, it won't affect the others." Jake nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were learning, just as Admiral Grant had predicted. "Pete, how are your mining ships doing?" "Foreman." Pete Wilson's voice came over the intercom from his command ship. "We're ready, Captain. I've got mining robots programmed to do things that would make their manufacturers file complaints. Plus, I loaded every ship with the loudest, most obnoxious equipment we could find." "Katie, status on the improvised weapons?" Chief Engineer Katie Walsh replied from the science vessel she was commanding. "Captain, I've outdone myself this time. We have musical instruments rigged to explode, art supplies that release toxic paint clouds, cooking equipment turned into chemical weapons, and something I call chaos bombs made from circus equipment." Chaos bombs, juggling balls filled with holographic projectors and sound systems. When they explode, they create a light and sound show that would confuse a computer virus. Jake smiled despite the danger they faced. "All ships, prepare for battle. Remember, our goal is not just to win, but to stay so unpredictable that the Zephyrians can't develop counters to our tactics." The mixed fleet began moving toward the inner system, where 4 billion people on 4 planets waited for salvation. As they approached, the 50 Zephyrian ships turned to meet them. "Captain," Alex reported, "I'm receiving a transmission from Proxima Station. They're asking if we're really going to attack with cargo ships and circus performers." "Tell them we're going to win with cargo ships and circus performers," Jake replied. The first phase of the battle began unlike any space combat in history. Instead of forming organized attack formations, the human fleet scattered in completely random directions. Cargo ships began dropping their loads, creating clouds of consumer goods floating through space. The circus ship released its acrobatic drones, which began performing elaborate aerial routines while broadcasting calliope music. Mining vessels started their standard asteroid processing procedures, treating the Zephyrian ships like unusually large rocks. Passenger liners activated their entertainment systems at maximum volume, flooding space with music, comedy shows, and vacation advertisements. "The enemy neural networks are showing signs of confusion," Ben reported. "But they're not overloading like before. The isolation chambers are working." "Then we need to be more creative," Jake decided. "All ships, implement Protocol Insanity." Protocol Insanity was something Katie had developed during their journey to Proxima. Instead of just being random, every ship would do the exact opposite of what military logic suggested. Cargo haulers began ramming Zephyrian ships at low speed, not to cause damage but to attach advertising displays to their hulls. Exploration vessels started scanning the enemy ships and broadcasting scientific reports about their findings. The circus ship deployed trampolines in space and began bouncing their acrobatic drones off Zephyrian hulls. Most incredibly effective was a passenger liner that began offering guided tours of the battle, complete with educational commentary about Zephyrian biology and tourism recommendations for their homeworld. "Sir," Ben said with amazement, "the Zephyrian adaptation systems are going insane. They're trying to classify advertising displays as weapons, analyze tour guide commentary as tactical data, and counter acrobatic performances as military strategies." The isolation chambers that were supposed to protect the Zephyrian neural networks began working against them. Each section was developing different interpretations of what was happening, and they couldn't communicate with each other to reach a consensus. 3 enemy ships are showing cascade failures," Ben reported. "Their neural networks are arguing with themselves." Jake watched the tactical display as the Zephyrian fleet began to fall apart. Ships that should have been working together started moving in opposite directions. Some vessels began firing at their own allies, apparently classifying them as threats based on corrupted data. "Pete, how are your mining operations going?" "Fantastic, Captain. My robots have attached themselves to 12 enemy ships and are currently trying to establish mining claims. According to their programming, they now own 30% of the Zephyrian fleet. Katie, status on your chaos bombs?" "Deploying now, sir. Fair warning, things are about to get very weird." Hundreds of juggling balls scattered through space, each one exploding into a riot of holographic images and sound effects. The space around the battle filled with virtual circus performers, dancing animals, abstract art, and music from every culture in the galaxy. The effect on the Zephyrian ships was devastating. Their biomechanical hulls began changing colors randomly as their neural networks attempted to process the sensory overload. Some ships started spinning in place, apparently, trying to track all the holographic performers. "Captain," Alex called out, "I'm receiving surrender signals from 7 Zephyrian vessels." "Surrender signals?" Jake asked in surprise. "Yes, sir. Their computers have apparently classified our circus performance as a form of psychological warfare and concluded that resistance is futile." "Ben, what's happening to the rest of their fleet?" "Mass neural network failures across the board, sir. The isolation chambers aren't just failing to prevent cascade breakdowns. They're making them worse. Each section of their brain is reaching different conclusions about what we're doing, and they're all wrong." On the main viewing screen, Jake watched as the remaining Zephyrian ships began to retreat. But they weren't retreating in an organized fashion. Some ships fled toward their home territory, others headed for empty space, and a few actually started following the circus ship as if they were hypnotized by the acrobatic displays. "All ships cease fire," Jake ordered. "Let them go." "Sir?" Ryan asked. "We could destroy the rest of their fleet." "No," Jake said firmly. "Let them return to their empire and tell their commanders what happened here. I want every Zephyrian in the galaxy to know that they lost to advertising displays and circus performers." As the last enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace, the mixed human fleet regrouped around Proxima Station. The celebration began immediately. Cargo ships flashed, their running lights in victory patterns. The circus ship put on an impromptu fireworks display. Mining vessels played their work songs at maximum volume. "Jake," came Admiral Grant's voice over the intercom. "Congratulations. Intelligence reports are already coming in from across the galaxy. The news of your victory is spreading faster than hyperspace travel." "What kind of reports, Admiral?" "Zephyrian fleets are pulling back from their forward positions. It seems that news of their defeat by circus performers has caused morale problems throughout their empire. Apparently, their warrior culture can't accept being defeated by entertainment." Jake laughed. "So we've won by embarrassing them?" "More than that. Intelligence suggests that the Zephyrian Empire is experiencing internal conflicts. Some factions want to develop new tactics to counter chaos warfare, but others believe that fighting unpredictable enemies violates their military honor codes. Either way," Jake said, "they've stopped advancing. For now. But Jake, this war isn't over. The Zephyrians will eventually find ways to counter our chaos tactics. Then we'll just have to stay more creative than they are," Jake replied. "Admiral, I'm recommending that we establish chaos warfare training centers throughout the galaxy. Teach every species how to fight unpredictably." "Using what curriculum?" Jake looked around his bridge at his crew, then out at the amazing collection. of ships that had just won the most important battle of the war. No curriculum at all. That's the point. Just give everyone the tools to be creative and let them figure it out themselves. Over the following months, the news of the Proxima victory continued to spread. Species that had hidden from the Zephyrians for years began emerging from their hiding places. Cargo pilots became heroes. Circus performers were recruited by military forces. Mining equipment manufacturers couldn't keep up with demand from worlds that wanted to turn their industrial tools into improvised weapons. The Zephyrian Empire faced with enemy. 3 days after the battle at Kepler, the USS Defiance arrived at Starbase Phoenix, the largest human military facility in the sector. Admiral Lisa Grant was waiting for them at the docking bay, along with representatives from 17 different species whose worlds had been destroyed by the Zephyrians. Captain Jake Morrison walked down the shuttle ramp and saluted the Admiral. "Mission accomplished, ma'am. The Kepler survivors are safe, and we have important intelligence about enemy capabilities." Admiral Grant returned the salute, but Jake could see the tension in her face. "Jake, we need to talk immediately. The situation has changed dramatically since you left." They walked quickly through the corridors of the starbase toward the main conference room. Jake noticed that the hallways were packed with beings from across the galaxy. Andromedan crystal warriors stood next to reptilian soldiers. Ethereal diplomats floated alongside human engineers. "What's happening here?" Jake asked. "Word of your victory at Kepler has spread throughout the galaxy," Lisa replied. "Every species that lost ships to the Zephyrians wants to know how you did it. More importantly, they want to help." They entered the conference room, where a massive holographic display showed the current state of the war. Red markers indicated Zephyrian-controlled systems. There were far more of them than Jake remembered. "How many systems have they taken while we were gone?" Jake asked. 12 more, Lisa replied grimly. "But for the first time, they've also lost some. 3 different species have successfully used your chaotic tactics to defeat Zephyrian fleets." The holographic display zoomed in on a system where blue markers indicated recent Allied victories. "The Crystalline Consortium tried your approach at the Vega system," Lisa explained. "Instead of using their organized energy attacks, they fired random crystal formations while playing discordant music. The Zephyrian neural networks couldn't adapt to the chaos." Jake felt a surge of hope. "How many enemy ships did they destroy?" 8. "But Jake, there's a problem." The display changed to show a different system, where a massive fleet of red markers was gathering. The Zephyrians are learning too. They've started sending much larger fleets to compensate for their adaptation problems. Instead of 3 or 4 ships, they're now attacking with 20 or 30 vessels at once. Jake studied the display. "They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers." "Exactly. And worse, we're getting reports that they're developing new tactics. Watch this." The holographic display showed a recent battle recording. A Zephyrian fleet approached a defended system, but instead of attacking immediately, they spread out and observed for several hours. "They're studying our chaotic tactics," Lisa continued, "learning to recognize the signs of improvised weapons and unconventional strategies." Commander Ryan Blake, who had accompanied Jake to the meeting, pointed at the display. "Admiral, are they adapting to our adaptation?" "We think so. Intelligence reports suggest that the Zephyrian Empire has created specialized observer ships. They watch battles from a distance and analyze our chaotic tactics, looking for patterns even in the randomness." Jake sat down heavily in one of the conference chairs. "So we need to stay ahead of them. Be more chaotic than they expect." "That's where you come in," Lisa said. "Jake, I'm promoting you to fleet captain and giving you command of a new task force. Your mission is to develop and test new unconventional tactics faster than the Zephyrians can analyze them. What kind of task force? Lisa smiled for the first time since Jake had arrived. The most mismatched collection of ships and crews in galactic history. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, exploration ships, even some passenger liners, plus a few military vessels for support. You want me to command civilians? I want you to command creative thinkers, people who haven't been trained to fight in predictable ways. Jake thought about the mining platforms at Kepler and how effective they had been. What about crew training? No formal training. That's the point. We need people who will do things that no military academy would ever teach. The conference room doors opened and several people walked in. Jake recognized Foreman Pete Wilson from the mining platform, along with Chief Engineer Katie Walsh and Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez from his own crew. These are some of your new squadron leaders, Lisa explained. Pete will command the mining vessel division. Katie will head up the improvised weapons development team. Sam will coordinate with any military vessels that join the task force. Admiral, Jake said, this is either the most brilliant idea in military history or the most insane. Probably both, she replied. But it's what we have. The holographic display changed again, showing a new system under Zephyrian attack. Your first mission is at the Proxima system, Lisa continued. Intelligence reports that the Zephyrians are sending their largest fleet yet, 50 ships, including some new designs we've never seen before. Jake studied the tactical information. Proxima was a heavily populated system with over 1 billion inhabitants across 4 planets. When do we leave? Your ships are already being assembled. You'll have 36 vessels of various types, plus whatever local forces you can recruit when you arrive. 36 ships against 50 Zephyrian vessels, Ryan said quietly, and most of our ships aren't even military. That's exactly why it might work, Pete Wilson spoke up. Captain Morrison, my mining crews have been talking to cargo haulers, transport pilots, and exploration teams throughout the sector. Everyone wants to fight, but nobody knows how. You've shown us that not knowing how to fight properly is actually an advantage. Jake looked around the room at the faces staring back at him. These weren't trained soldiers. They were ordinary people who had decided to do something extraordinary. All right, Jake said. When do we leave? 1 hour, Lisa replied. Your flagship is the USS Defiance, of course. Your fleet will rendezvous at the Centauri way station and proceed to Proxima together. What about supplies? Katie Walsh grinned. Captain, I've been talking to supply officers throughout the starbase. We're loading the ships with the most random collection of equipment imaginable. Musical instruments, art supplies, cooking gear, recreational holographic programs, even some circus equipment from an entertainment ship. Circus equipment? Apparently there's nothing more confusing to a military mind than a juggling robot. Jake couldn't help but smile. All right, people. Let's go save Proxima and see just how chaotic we can make this war. As the meeting broke up and everyone headed to their ships, Admiral Lisa Grant pulled Jake aside. Jake, there's something else you need to know. Our intelligence suggests that the Zephyrians are planning something big. This attack on Proxima might be a test of their new tactics. What kind of test? We think they're trying to develop counter-chaos strategies, ways to fight unpredictable enemies. If they succeed at Proxima, then our advantage disappears, Jake finished. Exactly. This might be our last chance to prove that human creativity can stay ahead of their adaptation. Jake nodded grimly. Then we better make sure they can't adapt to what we're planning. What are you planning? Jake looked out the window at the collection of mismatched ships gathering in the spaceport. Cargo haulers floated next to mining vessels. Passenger liners docked alongside exploration ships. In the middle of it all, the USS Defiance waited like a shepherd watching over an unlikely flock. "I'm planning to show the Zephyrians what happens when you try to organize chaos," Jake said. "They're about to learn that the one thing more unpredictable than human creativity is human creativity working together." Admiral Grant watched as Jake headed toward his ship, surrounded by miners, cargo pilots, and engineers who had volunteered to fight the most powerful empire in the galaxy for the first time since the war began. She actually believed they might win. Captain Jake Morrison watched in fascination as the 7 Zephyrian ships continued their chaotic behavior. 2 of the massive vessels had collided with each other while spinning out of control. Another was firing its weapons randomly into space. The remaining ships drifted aimlessly, their biomechanical systems clearly malfunctioning. "This is incredible," Ben Carter said from his science station. "The corrupted data from the disabled ships has spread through their entire network. It's like a chain reaction of confusion." Communications Officer Nicole Davis looked up from her console with excitement. "Sir, I'm receiving transmissions from multiple sources. Other ships in the area are asking what's happening here." "What other ships?" Jake asked. "Cargo vessels, mining ships, even some civilian transports. They're all hiding in nearby systems, but they can see the battle on their long-range sensors." Commander Ryan Blake walked over to Jake's chair. "Captain, this could be our chance to spread the word. If other ships know that the Zephyrians can be defeated..." Jake understood immediately. "Alex, open a channel to all ships in the area." "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance to all vessels receiving this transmission. We have successfully disabled 10 Zephyrian warships using unconventional tactics. The enemy can be defeated, but only if we abandon traditional military strategies." The response was immediate. Nicole's console lit up with incoming messages from dozens of ships. "Captain Morrison, this is the cargo ship Stellar Wind. Did you really defeat the Zephyrians?" "Defiance? This is Mining Platform 7. How did you do it?" "USS Defiance. This is Transport Captain Lisa Chang. Please tell us what you learned." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was smiling for the first time in months. They had not only survived an impossible battle, but they had discovered hope for the entire galaxy. "All ships," Jake announced. "What we learned is simple. The Zephyrians adapt to organized, predictable attacks, but they cannot handle random, chaotic tactics. Use improvised weapons, play loud music, create confusion. Their neural networks will overload." Down on Kepler's moon, Supervisor Danny Phillips was organizing the evacuation when he received an interesting message from one of his mining teams. "Danny, this is Foreman Pete Wilson on Mining Platform Delta. We've been listening to the space battle on our communications system. Do you think we could help somehow?" Danny thought about this. The mining platforms had powerful equipment designed for breaking apart asteroids. Maybe that equipment could be useful. "Pete, what kind of gear do you have up there?" "Industrial cutting lasers, asteroid crackers, ore processing drones, and about 50 mining robots. Nothing military, but some of this stuff is pretty powerful." Danny contacted the USS Defiance. "Captain Morrison, we have mining platforms in the outer system that want to help. They have industrial equipment that might work as improvised weapons." Jake's tactical mind began working immediately. "Danny, can those platforms move?" "They have basic propulsion systems for repositioning. Not fast, but they can get around." "Perfect. Tell them to load up with whatever they have and join the fight." Within an hour, 5 mining platforms were moving slowly toward the battle area. Each platform carried industrial equipment that had never been designed for combat. But Captain Morrison was beginning to understand that sometimes the most effective weapons were the ones the enemy had never seen before. "Captain," Alex reported, "I'm receiving a transmission from the mining platforms. They want to know what they should do with their equipment. Put them through." The main screen showed Foreman Pete Wilson, a gruff man in a mining suit covered with asteroid dust. "Captain Morrison, we're honored to help, but we're not military. We don't know anything about space combat." "That's perfect, Pete. Military thinking is exactly what we need to avoid. Just use your equipment the way it was never meant to be used." "I'm not sure I understand." "Turn your mining lasers into weapons. Use your ore-processing drones as missiles. Program your mining robots to do things they weren't designed for. The more chaotic and unpredictable, the better." Pete grinned. "Captain, we've been improvising with broken equipment for years. I think we can handle this." The mining platforms spread out around the confused Zephyrian ships and began their attack. Industrial cutting lasers designed to slice through asteroids carved random patterns into the alien hulls. Ore-processing drones, normally used to sort minerals, swarmed around the enemy ships making grinding and beeping noises while releasing clouds of metallic dust. But the most effective weapons were the mining robots. Pete's team had programmed them to perform their normal mining routines, but on the Zephyrian ships instead of asteroids. The robots began drilling holes, taking core samples, and attempting to extract minerals from the biomechanical hulls. "The enemy neural networks are having complete breakdowns," Ben reported with amazement. "They're trying to analyze mining equipment, but nothing makes sense to them. Why would someone drill core samples during a battle? Why are the robots trying to catalog mineral content?" Jake laughed out loud. "Because that's what mining robots do. They don't know they're supposed to be weapons. The effect on the Zephyrian ships was devastating. Their adaptation systems, designed to counter military threats, had no idea how to respond to industrial mining operations. The neural networks burned out one by one as they tried to process the incomprehensible data. "Sir," Nicole called out, "I'm receiving more transmissions from ships throughout the sector. Word is spreading about what we discovered here." "What are they saying?" "Cargo ships are reporting that they're loading up with noisemakers and confusing equipment. Transport vessels are organizing groups to attack Zephyrian positions using unconventional tactics." Ryan smiled. "It's starting a revolution." Jake nodded. For the first time since the war began, humanity and its allies had something the Zephyrians couldn't counter: the ability to be completely unpredictable. "Ben, status on the enemy ships? All 10 vessels are now completely non-functional. Their neural networks have shut down permanently. They're essentially dead in space." "Any chance of recovery?" "None, sir. The biomechanical systems are too damaged. These ships will never fly again." Jake felt a surge of pride for his crew and the brave people who had joined the fight. Miners, cargo haulers, and transport pilots had all contributed to this victory. "Danny, how's the evacuation going?" "Almost complete, Captain. The last shuttles are loading now. All the wounded have been transferred to medical ships, and the remaining civilians will be off the moon within the hour." "Excellent. Pete, how are your mining platforms holding up?" "We're doing great, Captain. My robots are still drilling holes in the alien ships. I think they've taken enough core samples to keep our geologists busy for years." Jake chuckled. "Pete, you and your teams have made history today. You've shown that anyone can fight the Zephyrians as long as they don't fight like soldiers." "Happy to help, Captain. By the way, we've been talking to other mining operations throughout the sector. Everyone wants to join the fight. The more, the merrier. Just remember, Stay unpredictable. As the USS Defiance prepared to leave the Kepler system, Jake looked out at the disabled Zephyrian ships floating in space. For months, these vessels had seemed invincible. Now they were just expensive scrap metal. Alex, send a message to Admiral Grant. Tell her we're heading back to base with complete tactical data on how to defeat the Zephyrians. Aye, sir. And Alex? Tell her to start gathering every improvised weapon, noisemaker, and piece of random equipment she can find. We're going to need all of it. Jake sat back in his captain's chair as the USS Defiance jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Kepler system was safe. Ahead of them, a galaxy full of possibilities waited. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered worlds by adapting to every military strategy they encountered. But they had never faced the one thing that humans did better than any other species in the galaxy. They had never faced pure, beautiful chaos.